it's not just about pregnancy. It's about your health. And as you said in the beginning of the live, when you track your cycles, you will know something is up way before a lab test will show something. A lot of people on Instagram, say like, you can get pregnant on your period. You can. I had sex on my period and I got pregnant on my period. But it's not technically right. So are you fertile on your period? What does your fertility awareness method say? What does your version of fertility awareness say?
So as per my method, you can, okay? And it depends on the type, so the pattern of your cycles. Depending on the pattern of your cycles, that's how you will know if you are someone who can potentially get pregnant on your period. And here's the thing. So when you're on your period, usually your eggs are dormant, okay? So estrogen doesn't begin to rise. The eggs don't begin to grow and develop until usually a few days after your period. But for some people, that development happens earlier on in the cycle, okay? Now, once the eggs start developing, they produce estrogenic mucus. Sperm can survive in estrogenic mucus for up to 5 days, okay? So let's say you're someone who basically you ovulate early because your eggs start developing early and you start producing estrogen early, okay? So if you're someone who tends to have really short cycles, I'm talking about like, let's say 20 to 24 days, your cycles are short because you ovulate early. Long cycles, late ovulation. Short cycles, early ovulation. That's the way it goes. Your cycle length is determined by when you ovulate. So if you're someone who tends to have an early development of eggs in the cycle, you start producing estrogenic mucus while you're on your period, right? Which will be unbeknownst to you because you're bleeding. All you're seeing is, if you use a cup, you see the blood, you can't tell the mucus from the blood. And you go by this thing that, well, I can't get pregnant while I'm on my period, and you have intercourse, you're producing this estrogenic mucus, the sperm stays in that mucus for up to 5 days. If you ovulate within that 5 days, you will get pregnant.
And that's such a good differentiation. So it's like while your uterus is like cleaning everything out, right? One of my Ayurvedic teachers, she's a physician, she says like, we set the table, we invite everyone to dinner, no one came to dinner, we take everything out and throw it away. That's what menstruation is. Basically. And so like the uterus is cleaning, but the ovaries are doing something else.
Yes.
Right? Yes. So the ovaries are starting to like, oh yeah, FSH and estrogen, like let's get these like eggs going, but the uterus is still cleaning out. But there's a really important nuance that you said. So we don't get pregnant on our period, right?
No.
But we can get pregnant from period
sex.
Period sex.
Basically.
And that's such a big difference of like, if you get pregnant when you have sex on your period, it's not happening right then.
No.
Because you're not ovulating when you're on your
not
period.
Ovulating
you can know that for sure.
Yeah.
And you can get pregnant with period sex because again, the ovaries and the uterus can be doing two different things. And if you have a shorter cycle, as you said. So that's a really important.
Sure.
One last question. Can you practice your method of fertility awareness when you have irregular cycles? And I'm thinking for people, that's a big misconception that you can't access this if you have irregular cycles, or if you're, so if you have PCOS and ovulatory cycles, or if you're breastfeeding, a lot of breastfeeding mothers want to start using it. So what's your recommendation for people who have irregular cycles?
Most definitely. You can practice fertility awareness. Everyone can practice fertility awareness. Irregular cycles, endometriosis, breastfeeding, everyone can practice fertility awareness. And in fact, for women with irregular cycles, I think it's even more important because with the irregularity, again, it comes with a lot of anxiety. You never know when your period is going to show up. You just don't know. But with the practice of fertility awareness, I always say, women who chart know what's up. You know what's up with your cycle. You know what's up with your hormones. You know what's up with your period, when it's going to show up, why it's late. If you're not pregnant, you know. Okay, so I think if you have irregular cycles and you're someone who, especially if you're trying to remedy the irregularity in your cycles holistically or naturally with, herbal medicine, whatever it may be, it's really important to start practicing fertility awareness, because you will see improvement in your cycle chart.
Yes.
Your cycle charts can lead you to the root causes of such imbalances. It's just a wealth of knowledge that I really want everyone to have. But definitely, breastfeeding moms, I've had a lot of PCOS, women with PCOS, breastfeeding moms. It's tricky to first learn fertility awareness when you're breastfeeding. This is why I recommend that you learn fertility awareness as soon as possible, but especially before getting pregnant. Because once you're breastfeeding, there will be irregularities in your cycles, especially in your mucus and in ovulation. So learning it at that point in time can be challenging. Don't try to self-teach. Definitely work with an educator. I think everyone should work with an educator, but especially women with irregular cycles and mothers who are breastfeeding. Because what you're going to see will definitely not fit into the box of what you see in a book or a blog post or a TikTok or whatever. But yes, everyone can learn fertility awareness, and super important, like the ones like you with regular cycles coming every 29 days, you may see it as not so important. It is, but it's even more important for the ones with irregularities, especially if you're working on your hormonal health and trying to fix things. You need to know how they say what gets recorded, what gets tracked, gets fixed, or I can't remember how the saying goes, but you need to have some record of what you're doing. So you're not just throwing things at the wall. Oh, I'll try this herbal. And you don't know what's working because you don't have any data that's telling you, is this working or not? So
and that's such
important.
a big deal. Like you said that at the beginning, and I wanted to bring it back, and I forgot, and now I remember. It's like, it's not just about pregnancy, it's about your health. And as you said in the beginning of the live, when you track your cycles, you will know something is up way before a lab test will show something. And, from an Eastern medicine perspective, that's the easiest time to fix something. And Western medicine only helps us once it's turned into a condition, but the easiest time to fix something is to prevent it from happening or pull it up before the root goes really deep into the body.
Exactly.
So we have a few questions, but I want you to tell us about your Prevent Pregnancy Naturally, and then we'll get to 3 or so questions. So tell us about this offer that you have and how people can work deeper with you, because you're obviously a wealth of knowledge, and we spoke about how important it is to get that support too, so you can decipher what's going on in your body, because every body is different.
Exactly. So basically I have 2 training programs depending on what your current goal is. So most women come to me who are trying to prevent, they've had it with hormonal contraception, and they're looking for an alternative. But often I have women coming to me who are trying to conceive as well, and they're struggling. And before they go into more complicated procedures, they want to try their best for it to happen naturally. And fertility awareness is absolutely perfect for that. As I said, it's perfect at every stage in your life. When you're trying to prevent, when you're trying to achieve, to monitor your health. Okay, but with the pregnancy prevention program, it's a fertility awareness training program. Okay, that's 6 weeks long with 4 sessions plus a 5th session after 3 cycles of charting. Now, you can absolutely learn fertility awareness on your own. If you want to go that route, you need to pick up a copy of the book, Taking Charge of Your Fertility. Forget the TikToks, forget the Reels, forget even whatever you see me posting on my account. It is not enough education for you to effectively practice this method. Now, I think I have the book back here. The book is huge. Usha, I'm sure you have it. It's like, it's
like a Bible.
Right? It's a Bible. Yeah. It's at least 500 pages or more. And you need to read it from front to back. If you want to have a bit more fun and you want to cut to the chase, you want to have a bit of an experience with your education and learning, then I highly suggest you working with an educator as myself. For the one reason that most of us do not have textbook cycles. That book is based off of textbook cycles, right? And most of us, we don't have that. So all it's going to do is bring you more confusion, more insecurities, more anxieties, it's going to affect your life. It's going to affect your sex life in a major way, in a major way. The pull out and pray, it ain't it.
No,
It ain't
it's so anxiety producing.
So with the training program, we have 4 sessions where I teach you how to chart the biomarkers, what they mean for your health hormonally, because remember I said it's about observation and being able to interpret what you're seeing. This is something the book cannot give you. You can't go to the book and say, well, this is what my mucus looks like, Krystal. Is this estrogenic? Is it not? Okay, this is one of the major benefits of working with an educator. I know I tried to teach myself using that book. It was a disaster. Okay, it's not because it isn't a good book. It's just because, my cycles, even though they're regular, it didn't fit into the realms of the book. Okay, so I teach you how to chart the biomarkers, very heavy on the hormone education in my program. So you will learn things that you never even knew that you should know about your body and how it works and how to interpret what you're seeing. What does it mean for your health? What does it mean for your fertility? What could be causing it, right? So yeah, you become really confident and you go from 0 to 100, in a specific time frame. Because again, a lot of people say, I'm going to teach myself. You start on the Google search, you go into the Facebook groups, months have passed and there's no difference. You still don't know what you're doing. Your partner still has to use protection and it's like an ongoing story. In 6 weeks, you complete your training and you can confidently use the method to prevent or to achieve and to tell you what's going on with your health, basically. Yeah, and this is one-to-one. I like to work one-to-one. I used to do group training programs, but I really prefer to work one-to-one now so that we can really dive into, the individual in front of me. I can give that.
That's so valuable in getting that support.
Personalized support. And that's the support, again, with the book, you can't ask your questions, and what happens is people end up, again, as I said, on these Facebook groups, and it's like the blind leading the blind because there's other self-taught people in there. Oh, well, I saw this, but what you saw,
it's not your body, right? It's kind of like an app.
So yeah, it just really, it eliminates all the confusion, the fear that women have that this isn't going to work. There isn't really a natural way to prevent pregnancy. There really is. It's possible entirely.
And, just thinking for women, like, I remember when I knew nothing about my body and I would go to my doctor and be like, I'm having these weird symptoms, this is happening. And it really makes you so vulnerable to a system that really doesn't have your best interest, in my opinion, in mind, and doesn't necessarily have a ton of information about your body either. Like, absolutely. So it really gives you the power to be like, hey, look, go to your naturopath or go to Krystal and be like, look, this is like my 5 last months of my charts. Like, that's insanely valuable information to have, even if you do outsource help. So for people who want to work with Krystal, you can click on that link right there to learn more about how to work with her.
Scrolling through the questions that I had a client once, she was trying to conceive and the only option given to her was IVF, and she decided to explore other options before going down that road. And then after passing through the program, she went back to see the endocrinologist. She went in with her charts and all of her data, and he said, she said he didn't seem really pleased with me, which is the feedback that I get, a lot. You go into your doctor all excited and you think they're going to be happy for you. She said he wasn't really pleased with me, but, he said, where did you learn all of this stuff? How do you actually, like, are you actually doing all of this every day? And then she explained to him, it's easy when I go to the toilet, blah, blah, blah. So they even, they think that we're not capable of doing this. First of all, a lot of them don't know about it. Yeah. So they can't educate you on it because they're not trained in it. And then they think it's complicated, so you can't learn it, Come on.
Totally. And I remember you posted a video on like a 10-year-old who was taking her temperature or something because she was like nervous about her period coming. And so she started taking her temperature, and like a 10-year-old can do it.
10-year-old.
Like that was so beautiful to see, you know.
Yep.
Are you kidding me? Of course we can handle this. Do you see the world we have to deal with now? Of course we can take our temperatures.
I mean, I can see my 7-year-old on the iPad. Like she can do stuff like that. That's this generation, and our generation, we can do it. It's not that difficult, you know. So yeah, it's really, really, I hate to use the word empowering because I think, you know, it's so cliche, but it really is empowering when you can walk into your doctor's office like a real badass and say, this is what's happening. I know when I'm ovulating late or blah, blah, blah. And then you can get the kind of care that you actually deserve. This is the kind of care you deserve. They take you seriously. Not like when they ask you, what was the last day of your period? And you're all fumbling. And no, you walk in there with the data. You get respect and you get the health care that you deserve. Big difference. Big difference.
A huge difference. And that was such a big point of this live of, you know, I think back to my 15-year-old self, and I know you said you went on the pill at 14, so we have a similar story there. I had no idea that these options existed. And when you don't know that options exist, like fertility awareness, you're backed into a corner, right? You're a teenager. You don't want to get pregnant as a teenager, but you want to have sex. And so, of course, you're going to choose one of the, like, the pill or the IUD, right? Which are some, you know, super valuable and life-changing for many people, but might not be the best option for you and your body. Exactly. So knowing that you have options gives you power to choose what's right for you, not from a place of fear, but from a place of knowing your body and choosing what's best for it.
Exactly. Honestly, I just want everyone to know about it. First and foremost, I just want every single person to know that this thing exists called fertility awareness. It's not going to be for everyone. You don't have to choose it, but you need to know your options, all of your options.
And a really good point on that, because I'm going to ask you questions now, but just to like tie that up, you can do fertility awareness method and still be on the copper IUD. You can do fertility awareness method and still use condoms all the time if you're afraid. Because it's not just about preventing pregnancy. It's about knowing your body and when you ovulate, which Krystal taught us. That's the only way we make progesterone. Like, so important. Okay, I got these questions here.
Tell me.
First question. To get an accurate BBT reading, basal body temperature reading, how small is the daily window of time to take your temperature?
The daily window of time. I'm not sure I understand the question.
So like when you wake up, you take your temperature. Like how long after when you wake up can you take it in order for the data to still be accurate?
Okay, so your basal body temperature, the reading that you want to get is your waking temperature. So the temperature, you need to take the temperature as soon as you wake up. So if you wake up and you go to the toilet and then you take your temperature, no good.
No good. Okay.
No good. If you wake up, you go make a coffee and then, oh shoot, I forgot to take my temperature. Don't bother taking it. No good. It's your waking temperature. From the moment you wake up and you leave the bed and your body starts, you know, regular motion, your temperature increases. So you would no longer be recording your base temperature, which is basal temperature. Okay, so you just need to take it as soon as you wake up.
Okay, another question is it recommended to take progesterone in the first 3 months of pregnancy when you've experienced reoccurring unexplainable miscarriages?
Possibly. So again, why I encourage women to begin charting before getting pregnant, because you would have data that would show you that you have a progesterone deficiency in your charts. Okay, so going into the pregnancy knowing that you are someone who is progesterone deficient, you would know that possibly taking progesterone would be a good idea. Without the data, how do we know? How do we know? So if you're charting and after you've confirmed ovulation, you see, and again, this is something that's very individual. So if I'm working with an individual, she's charting her basal body temperatures, we're looking for the patterns, and then I can say, well, post ovulation, your temperatures are pretty low. I can't tell you, okay, like Usha, this is a number. I can't give you a number, right? It's individual. It's dependent on the individual. So post ovulation, your temperatures are really hovering close to the cover line. They're quite low. You could be progesterone deficient. Let's go and get that tested. Let's go and get that tested and see if you are if this is a healthy range for you, if this is a healthy range. Because yes, going into a pregnancy, progesterone is essential. It is what keeps the lining in place. And it is the reason for many miscarriages. It's simple, and it's a simple fix, but you have to know, you have to have that data, that information, because literally you go to your doctor and they will tell you, oh no, it's a miscarriage. We don't know why, because there can be a multitude of reasons for miscarriage. Low progesterone is one of them. And if you're charting your cycles, you would have seen it prior to conceiving and hopefully gotten it remedied.
That's such a great individual answer, you know, that it won't be the answer for everyone to do that. But if you have that data, then it might make sense for you.
Yeah.
Another question is, does fertile mucus, for example, egg white, always mean ovulation? We went into this in the live, but this person might be new. So if you want to answer that, feel free.
Does it always mean ovulation? That is, you may not realize that's a loaded question, but that is a pretty loaded question. Because if you see egg white mucus after you have confirmed ovulation with a proven method, then no, it's not fertile. It's not fertile. It could be that post-ovulation, your progesterone levels have suddenly dropped and your estrogen is now higher than your progesterone, and that's why you're producing estrogenic mucus, okay? It doesn't mean you're fertile, because you cannot ovulate twice in each cycle. If you see it before you have confirmed ovulation, I would say yes, consider yourself fertile. So it kind of comes down to when you see it.
Next question. What do you think about pairing fertility awareness with herbal methods like Queen Anne's lace?
I can't speak to that because I have to say I'm not educated in herbal methods. I'm not. But what I can say is fertility awareness doesn't need to be paired with anything. It stands on its own 2 feet. It stands on its own 2 feet. And if you're not feeling confident in what you're doing, it probably means you're missing some education, you're missing some guidance, you're missing some support somewhere along the line. Because fertility awareness 100% stands on its own. Doesn't need to be paired with anything else. Is Queen Anne's lace, is that an abortifacient by any chance?
No, it's wild carrot seed. So it stops the fertilized embryo from attaching to the lining.
Attaching?
Yes. Personally, for me as a clinical herbalist, I would say that long-term use of any plants that promote contraceptive methods will have an effect on your body. And so you can use them. Like, I've worked with lots of women who have used neem topically or neem internally with their partner, or Queen Anne's lace. But if we're doing something to like prevent pregnancy over and over again every month, it will eventually have an impact on our body, just like any plant that we take long term.
Exactly.
And I think you had such a good point there that, like, why, you know, fertility awareness method is proven. If you're doing it right, it doesn't need
it doesn't need anything else. So I was thinking maybe the question was more in that to be used in an emergency kind of situation, because this is something I talk about in my training as well with clients, like what to do if, yes, you've pinpointed that you're fertile and, you know, you had one or too many margaritas and you did the thing, even though you know you're fertile, okay? And so we do talk about options there, and I thought maybe that's what they meant. But fertility awareness stands on its own, and you don't need anything in conjunction with that on a daily or regular basis. In terms of an emergency, well, from the sounds of it, if it prevents attachment, then it could be useful.
Yeah, it's good to have on hand for an emergency, for sure. And there's another question here about, so please speak to the LH surge testing. Is it the same as ovulation strips?
It It is. So commonly known as OPKs. A lot of women who are trying to conceive would refer to them as OPKs, ovulation predictor kits. Again, we cannot predict ovulation. But with the LH surge, what happens is that, so the hormone LH is produced when your estrogen reaches its peak. And so that surge of LH can be detected in your urine. And LH will surge about 24 to 48 hours before you ovulate. So this is why they're called ovulation predictor kits, because when you detect a surge in LH, it usually means that you're going to ovulate within 24 to 48 hours, okay? And I say you should. You should, okay? Because there are cases, which, I mean, we can get into it right now, but it's possible that you do detect the LH surge and you do not ovulate. In most cases, you will and you do, but it is possible to detect it and you not ovulate. If you're someone with PCOS, if you're someone in perimenopause, there are many different situations where you can detect an LH surge, and it's called ovulation predictor kits, but it's not concrete. You know what I mean? It's not a given. I detected this, so I'm definitely going to ovulate in 24 to 48 hours. It's not, your body isn't robotic.
Because we can't predict ovulation, right?
Can't predict ovulation. But it is a very good indicator. It should never be used on its own, okay? Because you will only get that surge right before you ovulate. But please remember that you are fertile before you ovulate. In most cases, many days before you ovulate. So if you're trying to prevent and you're only using those kits or those sticks, you will be missing days where you're potentially fertile, even before you get that surge.
And that's such a great reminder for people. Another,
so please.
Something that I wanted to clarify on Queen Anne's lace, because I don't think I made it clear. So the way that Queen Anne's lace prevents pregnancy is by disrupting the hormonal support that our body creates to grow the endometrium lining. So there's not a ton of research done on it. Like, it's more of folk use. So I can't be like, oh, it works by, disrupting progesterone. But it does disrupt your natural hormone production. And that's how it prevents implantation. It basically makes the womb inhospitable. So that's why I said, if you're taking it long term, it's going to affect you. Definitely. It's like a natural hormonal form of birth control. Although a lot of herbalists would say, like, no, it's not. Don't even call it contraceptive. Don't even call it an abortive. But it has traditionally been used in that way. But I personally don't recommend use long term because it will affect your body and the balance. 2 more questions. First question, can I ovulate / be fertile without a period? I'm a breastfeeding mom here, 3 months now, no period yet.
All right, breastfeeding moms, very important to know. Before you have a period, you will ovulate. You ovulate before your period, okay? So a lot of breastfeeding moms wait for a period to say, well, okay, so I'm fertile again. I can get pregnant again, okay? Ovulation comes before your period. So yes, you could be ovulating this very moment.
And that's how, I'm Irish. We coined the term Irish twins. Like, that's how it happens. You breastfeeding and not bleeding is not a sign that you're not fertile. That's how that happens.
Yeah, there is the lactation method, right? Because really, hormones produced when we breastfeed are supposed to suppress ovulatory hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, LH, estrogen, the works, okay? But it really, it's very individual because it depends the intensity in which you breastfeed, the frequency in which you breastfeed. Is baby co-sleeping or not? Is baby taking binkies, pacifiers or not? There are a lot of factors that come into play. I breastfed my first daughter for 1 year and did not ovulate. With my second daughter, she breastfed for 2 years and I did not ovulate or have a period for 2 years. Some people see the return of their fertility within a month, okay? Yeah. And with my second daughter, we co-slept. She fed through the night. She was vicious, man.
Yeah.
She was breastfeeding on demand. Okay, the breast was her best friend. So that was a very effective method of contraception for that 2 years. I did not ovulate or have a period for 2 years because we were maxed out. She didn't take pacifiers, solid foods, none of it. It was just the breast for 2 years. So yeah.
And that's your body's intelligence, right? Of like, as you said, we're maxed out. So no, I'm not ready to have another baby yet. I'm just focused on this one. Like that's your body's intelligence. And I think what you said is so important. It's bio-individual. Like I've worked with so many women who are breastfeeding on demand. They're bed sharing. They're doing all this thing, no pacifiers. Their cycle comes back in 6 weeks. They're bleeding. Exactly. They're ovulating again. So, knowing your body and, as you said, charting and getting to know your fertile signs is so vital, even if you are breastfeeding. I know for me, I started charting again at month 2 at postpartum, and I knew I ovulated the month before, a few weeks before I bled. And it was so cool to feel my hormones come back on and then be able to confirm that and know that my period was coming 6 months postpartum. I still got caught off guard and I was on a trip and I had to use my daughter's diaper as a pad. Which is the most new mom postpartum story ever. But that was me, even though I knew I was ovulating. One more question, Krystal. Can you explain the difference between PCO and PCOS and what this means for fertility and infertility?
As far as I know, they're the same. One leaves out the S, which stands for syndrome. Polycystic ovarian syndrome or polycystic ovaries. I know. And
for me, it's the same.
It's the same. So we know that with PCOS, one of the major symptoms we can say is irregularity in the cycles. And that's because with PCOS, we tend to see elevated levels of androgenic hormones or male type hormones, and that suppresses the female reproductive hormones. And so that's why we see a lot of irregularity with periods, because ovulation is also irregular. Okay, so that is the impact on fertility, in that you tend to ovulate a lot later in the cycle or not ovulate at all. I've had clients who've had 40-day cycles, 60-day cycles without ovulation and a period. So maybe that person is actually trying to conceive or prevent. Actually, it doesn't matter, but charting your cycles and seeing the signs of fertility are super, super important if you have PCOS. And some women think it's a barrier, but it's not. It's more of a must. It's more of a must. Because you have this, it's so unpredictable. Your cycles are so unpredictable that you can bring predictability to it. And, it can really relieve your anxiety. And so just knowing what's happening in your body, not just waiting for a period. When is it going to show up? When is it going to show up? You will know when it's going to show up because you'll know when you ovulate it. You 40 days into the cycle and no period. If you didn't ovulate, you will expect it. You can't expect to have a period if you didn't ovulate. So for you, it's going to be I wouldn't say no biggie, because it's a biggie if you're not ovulating regularly, but at least you'll be prepared. You'll know what's going on,
And that's such a big deal. First of all, that people who have PCOS, that they know that it matters to ovulate. Again, we say it again, even if you don't want to get pregnant. And that's not really the allopathic Western medicine view. I've, had so many clients who have had providers tell them, oh, well, don't worry about it. Unless you want to get pregnant, it's a blessing that you're not ovulating. And that's just not true, because progesterone is essential for your bone health, for your brain health, for your breast health, for the health of your entire body. Yeah. It's not just a mistake that we make progesterone. No. Our bodies don't make those, in terms of the creation of progesterone, we need that. And so this is the last question. Can you have a period? Can you have an anovulatory cycle and be bleeding but not ovulate? Or is bleeding a sign that you're ovulating?
No. Just like every discharge isn't cervical mucus, every bleed isn't a period.
Yeah.
That one is worth repeating. Every discharge isn't cervical mucus, and every bleed isn't a period. Okay? A real, true period follows ovulation. There are different types of bleeds, withdrawal bleeds, implantation bleeds, other kinds of bleeds, but a true period follows ovulation. So if you're having an anovulatory cycle, meaning you did not ovulate and you bled, we wouldn't refer to that as a period. What would have happened is that your estrogen levels would have most probably the point where, okay, estrogen builds up the lining. So let's say estrogen is doing its thing, building up the lining, but remember I said it needs to peak in order for you to ovulate. But if it never peaks, it's just kind of hovering, never really peaking or doing anything, okay, then your body gets to the point where it's like, okay, I can't really build anymore, and I'm just going to shed. I'm just going to shed. And so there's a shedding of the lining or breakthrough of the lining. But, you know, technically we wouldn't call that a period.
So everyone, you know, lots of people think like, oh, I'm bleeding every month. Like, you know, for someone like me, I have my cycle every 29 days. Cool, I'm bleeding. And it's like, we think, look out for your period. But just because you're bleeding regularly, if you are, that still doesn't mean that you might be ovulating regularly, which is so important. And we know Krystal's told us again and again and again how important ovulation is. And Krystal, I feel like there's so many sayings from this live that we could put on t-shirts or sweatshirts. So if you want to partner on merch, let me know. Like some straight up to the point myth busting things. And really just thank you so much for your time. Krystal, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know, thinking about my 15-year-old self, and you know, I have a daughter too, and it's like she's gonna grow up knowing about this and knowing from the start. I know, like that is so reparative. They don't have to go through what we went through with the pill and, you know, the pull out and pray and all of the anxiety that can go around that because of this method and because of people like you who are sharing it. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. I loved doing this, and I'm just really happy to have done this, Usha. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who's watching. Thank you so much for your questions, for your presence. Thank you so much, Krystal.